All right. Welcome everyone to the Back to School Masterclass. I am so excited to be here. I had this idea because one, I am struggling with back to school this season, and I knew if I was struggling, I couldn't be the only one. Lo and behold, I went to our community and I started asking, how's back to school going for you guys? And you guys can let me know in the comments, but scale of 1 to 10, how is back to school going for you? And one of the things that I saw were a lot of ones and twos and threes. And the thing is I don't want anyone to be at a 1 or a 2 or 3. So our goal today with Seth is to get this, your number, your back to school confidence, your back to school emotions and feelings over a 5. I would love it if we could get it up to a 7 with some of the strategies and tools that Seth's going to be sharing today. But I knew exactly who to turn to when I was struggling with back to school and when I saw so many of you guys struggling with back to school. Let me know in the comments if you could only boil it down to 1. And I know 1 is a really tall ask, but if you could only boil down your back to school struggles to 1 challenge, what would that be? Go ahead and put that in the comments for us. And I see Nikki saying a 4, school refusal and exhaustion. Debbie saying a 5 for one, 7 for the other. I see Jen saying overwhelmed from trying to do too much. I hear you there. Not doing classwork, homework, personal responsibility for their work, time management, not doing the work, not waking up on time, fidgeting while doing the work, school refusal and assignment submission, resistance, daughter's insecurities, getting ready in the morning. I mean, you name it. They're just coming in fast and furious in the comments, Seth. So I have brought my good friend, Seth Perler, on. Seth, can you, for people who don't know who you are, can you share a little bit about who you are and why you are so passionate about helping struggling students?
Yeah. So hi, everybody. If you are not familiar with me, I have a site called SethPerler.com and a summit called ExecutiveFunctionSummit.com. And I have a YouTube channel with my name or Executive Function or something in it. But I do a lot of stuff in this executive function world. But who I am is, to start at the beginning, is I was a student who struggled with all of these things. And most people who go through what I went through don't become educators. I did. But I literally, starting in first grade, started having on the progress reports daydreamer, doesn't pay attention, and problems with homework and motivation and this, that, and the other. And so I got into high school and things, I skated by, I could fake it. And around junior year, I started failing everything. I almost failed out of high school, went into college on probation because I had high test scores, and failed out of college, failed out of another college. The only reason I went to that college was to get away from my parents who were cramping my style, so I thought. And so I felt like a lazy failure. That was my internal dialogue. Those were my 2 biggest internal dialogue words. It was lazy failure. And I didn't have a coach or know what to do or anything like that. So I eventually started turning things around, self-coaching, getting help anywhere and everywhere I could find it, because I was at that point able to receive help, to ask for and receive help, and turn things around. And it was extremely hard. Anyhow, I ended up falling in love with education, became a teacher. And literally one day I was like, I'm going to serve kids for the rest of my life. And I have not looked back since. And that was in 93 or 94. And so anyhow, I taught for 12 years, got a master's in special ed and gifted education. I like complicated kids. And I like 2E kids, complicated kids who struggle, very complicated human beings. And I like helping them figure out how awesome they are. So after 12 years of teaching and being frustrated, sorry if this is too long, Dayna, but
Oh, we
with the
love it.
system, I started doing what I do now. And once I figured out that executive function was at the root of all of the struggles of these kids, whether there was trauma, ADHD, autism, no diagnosis of anything whatsoever, whatever the case may be, it had to do with executive function. And once I started figuring that out, that changed the entire lens that I looked at things through, and started looking at things through a skill set view rather than is this kid motivated or trying hard enough, which is what's so common, unfortunately, is that the narrative is very wrong. So that is the path I've been on since 2010, is trying to change things around that, working with kids, parents, families, teachers, anybody who will listen to real strategies to help kids move forward so that they can have a good life.
Ugh, I love that. And I love that it came from a place of you were there, you were that kid, and you know how hard that is to deal with that struggle. And so I just, I really empathize with what you are sharing and what you're talking about, because I definitely struggled a lot. I still was that achiever, so I didn't fail out, but there were definitely years where I had these dips. Eighth grade, I remember failing a lot of my classes and my mom being like, "You're better than this, you know better than this." And then my junior year, the same thing kind of happening again. And now I know so much more about why that was happening and where that was coming from. What are some of the biggest challenges you see when parents come to you and they are at kind of their wits' end with homework, with school, with all these challenges? What are their biggest frustration points?
What are the parents' biggest frustration points?
Yeah, yeah.
What I hear from parents as far as their frustration points, I think that they are at a loss. They don't know what to do. So I think part of the frustration is that they've tried a bunch of things and that those things haven't worked, or they haven't worked well enough. They were very hopeful, and I think that they've dove into whatever the thing is and it just didn't do much. I think another frustration parents have is with the schools. Now, I am not somebody who is going to just blanket put down schools, but there are a lot of teachers in schools that don't get it and don't get these kids, and there are a lot who do. So I would never be the person who's like, oh, school didn't work for me. Like, I got a lot out of school even though I failed. And thank God for teachers who a lot of them are lifesavers, regardless of any of the systemic dysfunction. But nonetheless, a lot of parents are frustrated with the schools or the teachers that don't get their kid. And a lot of the kids that I get, I think disproportionately are those kids that have at least one teacher who not only doesn't get them, but seems to like have it in for them. I would be interested in the comments if you have a kiddo where you have a teacher and you say something like that. Yeah, this teacher's got it in for my kid, or this teacher just doesn't like my kid. Now, I'm not talking about your kid saying my teacher hates me. That's different, because that may or may not be, I don't think it's usually true that they hate them, but that's a frustration, is that people, thank you for popping that. So but that a lot of people feel like they don't get their kid. Another frustration they have is with the portals and the absolute ridiculous amount of things that people are supposed to sift through in order to find very basic, simple information. So, and there's a lot of frustration with the miscommunication from the school to them, to their kid. Their kid will tell them one thing, they think something different from the school. They don't know what's true. So that's a big frustration. I think the frustration with their kids not being forthcoming or honest, and their kid is saying to them, I've got this, leave me alone, stay off my back, I can handle it. And they can't. And they're frustrated because they're trying to give their kid autonomy and allow their kid to do whatever they're saying they can do. And they're frustrated because when they see their kid not do this thing, they know from an adult perspective the consequences of not building. And I'm not talking about the executive function skills just here, but just the life and academic and educational skills that they're not building. The reality of that the parents know in the back of their head. So I think that's frustrating, is that balance between like how much is too much help, how much is not enough help, when am I enabling my child, when am I not doing enough, what's just right. I think that's frustrating for parents. Yeah, I could go on, but
I hear so much of that, and I see a lot in the comments saying I don't have my kid at a school, but I'm homeschooling, and I see a lot of challenges with homeschool. of getting kids to do the work, getting kids to finish, follow through, getting kids to, when you're working, feeling like, oh, I'm homeschooling so that I can meet their needs, but at the same time, they're kind of resisting me helping them or meeting their needs. And so we're going to be getting into a lot of the things that you just talked about and a lot of the things that you guys are talking about in the comments as well today. So I'm really excited about that. And you kind of spilled the beans earlier. You said that you discovered that behind a lot of these struggles, if not all the struggles, was something called executive functioning. So I know what that is now, thanks to you and thanks to my oldest, who kind of forced me to have to learn about it. And there's so much more awareness around this nowadays. However, there's a lot of people that don't understand what this is. They're not aware of it. Can you share what exactly is executive functioning and why is this what is behind a lot of the challenges when it comes to homework, schoolwork, staying on task, and that sort of thing?
Yeah. So this is the brain of one of the students I used to work with. I took it out of their head. Just kidding. This is the brain,
Oh
and
no.
the frontal lobe, the right behind your forehead here, the front third of the brain, the frontal lobe or the prefrontal cortex. This front part of the brain generally is responsible for this thing called executive function. And just to keep it simple, think about the word execute, to execute tasks. So if I want to execute a task, whether it's playing video games, learning a song on guitar, doing this webinar, writing a book, doing a paper, doing homework, cleaning a bedroom, cleaning a car out, whatever. In order to do any of these tasks, it requires executive function, and we are executing a task. So the brain has to do a lot of things to execute. So let's look at video games. In order to execute, you have to have a plan. They know what game they're going to play, what they're going to need. They're prepared. They're organized. Even if it doesn't look organized, they have all the things they need: the controllers, the cables, the batteries, the whatever, to execute on that task that is something that is meaningful and engaging for them. So executive function has to do with all sorts of things. Emotional regulation. We have to regulate emotion to execute a task. We have to have self-regulation or self-control. Imagine a kid playing a video game and the parent says it's time for dinner, and they're like, their executive function is focused and paying attention and concentrating, and they're able to resist the distraction of you saying it's time for dinner. So keeping that self-regulation of ignoring a distraction is part of executive function. So there are all of these sorts of things that help us to execute. So, and I think in terms of just defining it, that probably helps explain and that's a very basic definition. Like there's a lot to it, but in terms of talking about it like that, we can see how the opposite is true when it comes to things like homework that they're resisting or responsibilities that they're resisting, because they're not using those skills to override the resistance to doing whatever the important thing is. So from that frame, what I'm looking at is, what are the skills? How do we empower someone to build those skills? And how do we empower them to build them when they're resistant and it's overwhelming for them? And the relationship with the parent, if you're a parent watching, like, and their fuse with you is so much shorter than their fuse with their teachers or tutors or other people in their life. Like, how do you support them?
That's a great question, Seth. I think that's why we're all here, is how do we do this? How do we help our kids? How do we help navigate? And I'd like to kind of keep this one focused really on that homework, that classwork, part of the struggle with school for now. We are going to have some more talks about advocating with school and those sorts of things in the coming weeks. So keep a lookout in your inbox, because I think next week's masterclass is going to be about advocating with the teachers. But right now, let's focus in on how to do some of this, how to teach our kids these skills, how to respond to our kids. So let's start with just the kind of that. They've come home from school, they're bringing home their homework, they're procrastinating, they're not really able to follow through and do their homework, or maybe they're just outright refusing or causing a fight. So, or not causing, but there is a fight around it. What are some of your your strategies and what are some of the things that parents need to remember around this.
Okay, so let me I'm looking at, I have some notes here, and I have like 4 or 5 main things that I'm gonna talk about. And
I gave you share access if you needed access for anything. So
okay, thank you. Okay. Yeah, I may or may not use it just time-wise, but
totally fine.
So let's the whole thing that I started looking at today, Dayna, when I was thinking about how to communicate about this stuff today, because every time I do sessions like this for all of you watching, I will do things a little bit differently, but there are some core principles that I cover. But what I really was looking at today is the idea of friction. So that your child not doing their homework or classwork, but we're going to focus on these homework struggles a lot today. Which will apply to other things as well. So you'll be able to use this for other things. But really, let's look at it from the lens of friction. Friction, friction, friction. What is causing the friction? So I have 4 or 5 things that I'm looking at in terms of what those friction points are. And the last one that I'm going to mention is probably the one that everybody wants, but that is not where we're going to start, and it is not where we should start. So the friction points are the things that are in the way of something moving. So imagine that something is supposed to move, and in this case, the movement is we want our kids to be doing the homework or classwork or the responsibilities. We want them to be executing on tasks that are important to their life, to their development, to their education, to their growth, to them having choices and possibilities and opportunities in their future. And we want them to execute on those things. But they're not executing. They're not wanting to. There's friction. What are those friction points? So the first friction point that I'm going to discuss here is going to be relationship. So the relationship, meaning that, and this is why I'm saying that a lot of people come to Dayna and I and they want quick tips and tricks and magic bullets and stuff like that. And that is not reality. That is not how, and I know Dayna very well. And Dayna is in this world deeper than almost anybody I know. And she has kids where there is friction. And I'm not going to say anything personal about Dayna's story, but she's very open with a lot of those things. But Dayna never acts like, oh my gosh, I'm above this. Like, I've got to figure it out. She has a lot of tools and strategies for it, but she knows that this is the long, hard work, and the relationship. Working on that takes time. So what I'm going to say about relationship is very brief. But one is that I'm a big fan of something called attachment theory. If you're not familiar with that, you should dive deep, in my opinion, into learning about something called attachment theory. Usually the literature on that is going to be talking about couples, but either way, it is helping us understand how we have secure relationships. And when your child won't listen to you, it's not that you're not being a good parent. It's that they, for whatever reason, don't feel secure to do what you're asking them to do. It feels unsafe to them. So they're going to use any tool at their disposal, whether it's sulking or arguing or excuses or lying or whatever, to not take action on the thing that feels overwhelming, that they probably really are overwhelmed to do. They probably also don't feel very engaged in doing and don't find a lot of value in it. Unfortunately, otherwise they would be doing these things. And they have much more interesting things to do, especially when it comes to how engaging they've made electronics. But the relationship. So how do we improve relationship? So looking at attachment theory, something else I want to mention is doing your own deep inner work. For example, Dayna does a lot of her own deep inner work. So for the parents, doing their own counseling, and like a lot of times they're like, does my kid need a therapist or a counselor or this or that? Well, hey, does the parent need their own therapist or counselor or support group or books or literature or programs or what have you? This is deep, difficult, hard, challenging work. I really don't care what we do, but the more work we do on ourselves, what I call deep inner work, the more we do on ourselves and looking at our own dysfunction, our own maladaptive behaviors that we've learned over our lifetime, the better off the better we're going to be for modeling that stuff for our kids, modeling healthier, more functional behaviors and practices with our kids, better communication, all the things. So the first thing, as far as a friction point, I'm going to review is relationship. That there are frictions there that they are not we want to reduce the friction. We want them to be able to execute. So working on ourselves and working on the relationship is going to help with that. Again, this is not something that's quick, but this is something that I can assure you, and I'm sure Dayna can assure you, that when parents start doing this, one of the things that I hear when parents start diving deep into this world is, wow, I didn't know how much work it would be on myself, but we are seeing results. This is helping. Here's why. Here's what I'm seeing. So that is number one, is the relationship with friction. Number two, as far as friction, when I talk about procrastination or resistance, or not executing, not taking action, you can think of those three things pretty interchangeably. And when I think about that, it's really important to acknowledge that resistance is also an experience in the human body. It's not that somebody's just choosing to be defiant or they're just unmotivated and they just need to work harder and they just need to try and they just need to stop messing around and they just need to focus. It is that there is also a sensation, a physical body sensation. There are many ways to convey this to you, but one of the easiest ways to convey it is think about a food that is absolutely disgusting and abhorrent to you. Think about putting a bunch of insects and liver and jalapeno in a blender and drinking. See Dayna's face? Dayna is literally having a physiological response. And you can think of it in terms of constriction or open. Like, you can think of the way we feel in two ways. Do you feel open? I'm a big fan of polyvagal theory, but Julia Colwell talks about above and below the line, but there's sort of this like open-hearted, creative space that we can be in, and then there's this closed space that we can be in that's constricted. But either way, that what the face Dayna was making, like just the thought that she had created a physiological response. Just a thought, just for me saying that. So we have to understand that when a kid is resistant, they're having a physical experience that's going, I can't do this. It's too abstract. It's too overwhelming. I don't know where to start my homework. I don't know what the homework is. I don't know how to figure out what the homework is, or I do know how to figure it out, but it's going to take me a half hour to look on the stupid portals to figure it out. And it's annoying and it's going to take me a long time and it's hard. And so anyhow, the second thing I wanted to mention in terms of resistance is that we need to really understand and acknowledge that they're having a physiological response. And when we can see that and when we can co-regulate to them, like I could say to Dayna, wow, Dayna, that you look like disgusted right now. What's up with that? And I can explore that in a curious way, not a shaming way or a pushing way or they feel so much pressure. But when they can feel seen, and some of you are probably thinking right now, yeah, but Seth, if I did that, it would take forever. We'd be talking until 10 o'clock at night and it's bedtime. And they wouldn't get it done. Then they're going to fail the class and blah. And yes, you're right. And there is a balance, but these long discussions and long interactions with your child that require a lot of attunement, which you can look up as well. If you're taking notes, you can look up the word attunement and co-regulation, and that require a lot of this stuff that do take a lot of time. It takes a lot of time. Yes, it's going to take a lot of time. And it is a hard balance because the piles on your kid's plate of life are unreasonable in almost all cases. Even homeschoolers, the amount of stuff that they're expected to do is just unreasonable. So if I had a magic wand, I'd be changing a lot of things about education and their life balance. But we need to understand that the body is having you can also look up the word somatic or somatic therapies, is having a somatic experience that they need to process, and they need to feel safe and secure, and their body I mean, we can, quote, force them by punishment or lecturing them. We're so annoying to them that they eventually do the thing, or blah, blah, blah. We can use all the methods that we've tried to get them to do the thing, but that is not giving them the skills. But once we start acknowledging, wow, this looks really frustrating for you. How are you going to solve this problem? What can I do to help you? That sort of a frame, then we are going to make more traction. Even though it seems like we're wasting a lot of time, you're actually going to be moving forward. Next, and this is very related to this, but in order for them to feel that more safe in their body, what works again is compassionate, empathetic, patient, persistent approaches. This isn't again, one and done. So let's talk about the word patience. A one and done. Hey, my kid already knows how to do that. Yeah, they know how to do that, but they don't have habits and routines around it. So it doesn't matter that they know how to do it. We didn't build the habits and routines. Wait, habits and routines? Yes, habits and routines. This is not a matter of just willingness or willfulness or motivation. There are no effective habits and routines around doing X, Y, and Z. Let's say a homework routine. That's an effective, powerful, structured, good routine that they have had buy-in and ownership in creating and things like that, just for example. But the persistence of working with we have to persistently chip away. These are increments of millimeters. That is what works. I'm sorry to tell you, but that's what works, is very small baby steps. The compassionate and empathetic, that's where they feel seen, like I said with the attachment theory, and they feel that we're being patient with them. And again, you might be freaking out knowing that your kid has to get done all these things, but their nervous system is going to feel that, and they really need to feel that patience and that empathy and that compassion, and that, you know what, no matter what, it's all going to be okay. We will figure this out. That does not mean we're going to all get A's and B's. That's not what I'm saying, but that it really means I am here for you. I love you. I care about you. I've got your back. I am not perfect, but I am here for you. I will try my best to listen. I will do my own deep inner work. I will apologize when I am wrong. Things like this, that is going to they're going to feel more of that compassion and empathy and patience. But then you have to be persistent with that. And then the next time, and now we're getting more into what a lot of people thought they were coming for, is
wait, real fast before you go to the last one. I have relationship as the first friction point. It's a physical experience is their second friction point. What's the third one?
Yeah, or a lack of understanding that it's a somatic experience. So yeah.
Okay.
So the removing the friction would be an understanding of the somatic body.
And the third one, is that the habits?
The third one is the I lump those together, but that is the patient, compassionate, empathetic, and persistent one. Sorry. Yes. So it's sort of the approach.
Okay. So the friction
and it's kind of to me, it's kind of under the umbrella of understanding the body. So when we're and these are all interrelated, but when we're understanding that the body's having experience, we're going to come at it rather than from a punitive, weakness focused, or rewards based. And I'm not saying rewards are bad. I will say how we use them are often ineffective. So they don't change the skill set. But
right.
When we understand the body, our approach, and when we're noticing that they're having a dysregulated nervous system, so it's sort of under the umbrella. If I were making an outline, I'd probably have friction at the top, and then relationship,
as making a doodle,
understanding the body, and then the third. So I'd probably put it underneath understanding the body, means that when we are acknowledging that, we are going to come at them with an empathetic, compassionate, patient approach, but persistently. We're not just going to think that we're going to teach them the skill and they've got it. We have to be persistent.
And then what was the fourth one? Because you said we're about to get, you haven't gotten there yet.
Nope.
Okay. So, I had just lost. I have a little doodle, of course, because
cool. I love it. I love it. Sorry. So then on the fourth one, I'm gonna.
I was on. Now you're on number 4.
Okay. I'm gonna switch 4 and 5 though. So purposely. So my last one that I said I was gonna tell you, I lied. I'm gonna switch that. So now number 4, I guess. Yeah, 4. We're gonna call that engaging work ? Okay, so friction. How engaging is the class that they're in, the teacher that they have, the work that teacher is? Maybe they have a teacher they love, but the work they're being asked to do is completely engaging, or they're doing busy work, homework that really is unengaging. So engagement. Okay, so if you are not engaged, and for all of us watching, think about something you have to do that is not engaging for you, and think about your own physical state when you have to do this thing. Oh, I got to go to the DMV and stand in that stupid line and take a number, and I don't know. And so think about something that is absolutely not engaging, not meaningful, not purposeful to you. I think that's a great example. Going someplace you don't want to go, taking a number, waiting in a long line, where it's hot and the air conditioner is not working and blah, blah, whatever makes you uncomfortable. Imagine that's the sensation your kid's having with school, except that they're probably more sensitive than you. So it's worse. So now I'm not saying that everything in school, but I'm saying that the things that are not engaging. So engagement is the next one. So then and this is something that oftentimes we don't have a lot of control over. And there's a but with that. So, how engaging is the class? How engaging is the classwork? How engaging is the homework? How engaging is the teacher? So there are these different components to engagement. And engagement means meaningful. How meaningful is what they're doing? How purposeful is what they're doing? How fun is how challenging, in a good challenging way, where they can achieve the challenge. It's in their zone where they can actually feel challenged, but succeed at it, right? Like the bar is not set this high and they're here. They can incrementally be scaffolded up. And so how engaging. So that has a lot to do often with the school, not with you. Now, when I said there is the but, that is the advocacy. I advocate, which Dayna is going to be talking about, I think, next week. Be the squeaky wheel. Say what you need to say to the schools and the teachers, and you may feel resistance from them, pushback. You may feel like you're being accused of being a helicopter parent, blah, 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 blah. Do not stop advocating. You have to keep doing that. When you know that it's too much, anyhow, I could go on with so many stories. But when you know in your gut that this is too much, speak up. And if they're like, well, we don't have the documentation yet. Again, I'm not going to go into a million stories, but it doesn't matter. Speak up anyway. Be the squeaky wheel. I can't do that because it's not fair to the rest of the class. Don't stop because they said something like that. Keep pushing and say, well, this is not working for us. What can we do? Like, do not give up on this, because there is an imbalance for a lot of these kids. It is literally too much. And so when you have
Seth,
to...
Can we talk about I struggle when people come to me and they say, I'm struggling to get my kid to do their homework. My first thing is, okay, remove the homework, right? So to me, it's like, this is a friction point. Let's advocate with the school that they don't need the homework, because
is it valuable?
So much, right? Yeah. Is it
busy work?
Is it busy work? And there's
so
much research that shows that homework is not actually effective. And so they've already worked really hard at school. And especially with our kids who have ADHD or who struggle to get all their work done in school, they're now being punished by having to do it at home.
Right. And kids with strong executive function, they are able sometimes to whip out the homework, get it done in 5 or 10 minutes, get it done on the bus, get it done in class. Like, these kids aren't those kids.
No. You wouldn't be here today if that was your kid. And so when you were talking about advocacy, I just thought about that. Is don't discount the fact that you can remove all the friction of homework by advocating for no homework or very minimal homework,
or for
alternatives to homework.
Yeah. Like when I was a teacher and I gave homework, it was because there was a reason for the homework. And one of the things, like you'll see, let's say a teacher gives the kid 50 math problems. Like when I would give homework in math, I might say, here are 3 problems. I want them all done perfectly. And that's all I want. Do 3 problems because I know that rather than them doing 50 drill and kill type problems, them doing 3 with perfect. I want them learning how to check their work. I want it, even if they have messy handwriting, I want to compassionately be like, okay, how can you learn these skills and go through the motions of this in a way, like, I don't care if I have to use big graph paper for kids. It doesn't matter. I am very conscious of like, what am I trying to teach here? So that's how I would determine what would be homework, but a lot of times it's really not valuable, or it's too much, or, so yes, so I'm sorry, did I answer a question?
No, I think I just was. This was something that I could probably stand on a hill and talk about all day long is homework. It bothers me. So I just
Yeah.
wanted to ask
Yeah,
your
they've
thoughts
been at
on that. And
school
then,
for X amount of hours, and the
yeah.
model is not working. But the way that we have it set up, and teachers think this too, and I don't fault teachers for this. This is the system they've been indoctrinated into, but they think, oh, we have to give homework. That is just what we do.
Well, and I've
And
been
we're
in schools
teaching them
as a
valuable
teacher.
things.
Well, as a
Right.
teacher, I was in schools and I see it in the comments where the parents are the ones asking for the homework because they feel like their kids aren't learning enough, they aren't doing enough. And just yesterday, I was out to dinner with Jason and we were talking about his schooling experience, and his mom moved schools because he would finish his homework by the time he got home because she didn't think it was challenging enough for him.
And
And there's just
that is something to consider, though, too, because there are kids that really thrive with that and that really benefit from that. And that is the just right amount. What needs to happen is, I mean, a lot needs to happen. But first of all, the class sizes are out of hand for teachers to be able to serve effectively. And second of all, there's a concept called differentiation with content, process, product, and environment. If any of you are taking notes, differentiation with content, process, product, and environment, especially you homeschoolers should really. John Taylor Gatto is one of my favorites. Thank you for Marian putting that in the chat. But if you look up the differentiation models, great teachers, and trust me, all of you who are having these struggles will also have fantastic teachers. Great teachers differentiate well. That means that everybody in the class feels successful and people have amounts that are appropriate to challenge each of them. So if Jason was appropriately challenged, that doesn't mean that Jason necessarily has homework every night, but it could mean that. But what is the appropriate challenge? So that is true. Like a lot, if there was less homework, a lot of parents would be very angry and frustrated and want more. So there are definitely systemic challenges that you're going to face in terms of the friction here. And yeah, so now let's move on to the next one. Assuming that your kid has to get stuff done anyway, whether or not it's engaging or not, stuff has to get done. And wherever you are with the relationship, if you're starting today and there's years of friction, that's not going to change overnight, and understanding the body stuff is new to you, and all these things, and things still need to get done. Now we get into more of the practical. And how are we doing on time?
doing okay. I would like to leave some time for take some actionable things that parents can do. So I want to hear this fifth friction point, and then I'd love to leave a little bit of time for some actionable things, and then some of the specific questions coming in.
Cool.
If you're okay.
So how much time would you like, just so that I can?
I don't know, like spend 5 minutes on the next one.
You got it. Cool.
Okay.
Thank you. That's concrete. Now, Seth is going to give you an actionable thing in reality while I'm doing this. This is a timer, and Seth is going to set it for 4 minutes, not 5, so that I know when I have 1 minute left. This is something I use with students a lot. It's kind of fading off, but Seth put an obnoxious sticker and wrote my name on the timer. I'm not worried about my timer walking anymore, but I put my name on everything. And if your kid loses stuff, everything should have their name on it. Everything. As a teacher, I didn't want to lose my timers or pens or this or that. So anyhow, label everything. But I'm telling you real things. So where I'm going with what I just said is that one simple concept in 5 minutes that I'm going to talk to you about, as far as the practical, what you all were really wanting, how to get the non-engaging work done despite everything and yada, yada. Chunking. That is the one word in your doodle that you can put is chunking. There are two ways that Seth talks about chunking. One is chunking by time. Two is chunking by task. Before I talk about what those are, let's talk about why chunking is such a crucial concept for what I do. The friction, the resistance, the sensation in the body is about overwhelm and abstraction. When something is abstract, it feels overwhelming. I don't care if you're an adult. I don't care if you're a kid. If you take a 1,000-piece puzzle and drop it on the middle of the floor, straight from the box, that is abstract and overwhelming, even if you love puzzles. Now, if you love puzzles, you may be like, ooh, let's get to it. But it is at that point very abstract. That puzzle on the ground is very abstract. You don't know where to start. Now, for those of you who have strategies, you know that you're going to start with strategies. I've never used this metaphor before, but I'm loving this. One of the strategies you use is finding the edges. If a kid doesn't know the strategy, it's just the 1,000-piece puzzle. One of the strategies you use is to look for colors that are similar. You know, you might, whatever, you get the point.
Find all the corners.
The corners. You're using strategies consciously. Again, these skill sets these kids don't have. Chunking takes something abstract, which is, I got to clean my room. What the heck does that mean? I don't know where to start. It's a mess. What do you want from me? Every time I clean my room, it's not good enough. I don't understand what you want me to do the dishes. And it's not, you know, they often feel like nothing they do is good enough because all they hear is criticism and it's too abstract and it's not concrete enough. Do your homework. What does that mean? Where do I start? What do I have to do? How long is it going to take? I'm already exhausted. Imagine yourself after a long day, any of you, and that you come home from a long day and you still have to do an abstract amount of stuff. So chunking helps. It doesn't solve everything, but it moves things from a more abstract, overwhelming place to a more concrete, and I'm not going to say not overwhelming, but I'm going to say much less overwhelming place. How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. Yeah.
One bite at a time. I was muted.
I was asking you. Sorry.
You have to unmute and then you can eat the elephant.
Yeah. How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. Sorry for the elephant metaphor. All elephants out there. I love animals. Sorry, elephants. I didn't make up the metaphor. How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. Journey of 1,000 miles begins with one step. Baby steps, small things. Okay. Your child might have literally to write a paper in middle or high school might take them 10 hours, literally 6 to 10 hours is probably pretty accurate. And now I know I have about a minute left that I want to wrap up. Right. So it takes time, but they can't feel like, oh my gosh, I have to sit down for 10 hours and do that. So, but to say, okay, I can work on this for 10 minutes or 20 minutes or 5 minutes or 3 minutes. How can you use concrete timers not on their phone to do small pieces that they can succeed at? Now, a lot of you also might be saying, yeah, but they do need to do X amount of time. It doesn't matter. It's a lot of it's a mental game. So with chunking with time, a lot of it is how do you find out how much time your child can mentally feel like they can do the thing? And what often happens is they trick themselves into getting started, which is so much of the problem, just getting started. And they trick themselves into getting started. And then that 5 minutes turns into 17 and they didn't even notice, or they complete the thing, or they partially complete the thing. And you're like, but it's still not done, but it's better than it would have been. And you have to take these wins. You have to notice these wins. And you also have to reflect these wins back to your kid. And I know that, again, a lot of you are like, but it's not done. They're going to get an incomplete. Well, here's what you can do. You can turn in that paper, put a note on it, or email the teacher and say, I know it's incomplete. I don't really care. For my kid, this is a win. You have no idea. Grade them how you feel you need to. But I am going to reward my kid and be like, hey, last week you wouldn't have done this at all. And you just did 17 minutes and it's half done rather than zero done. And to me, that's an A+. And I love you and I'm here for you. Like, go back to that body and the attachment that you want them to feel seen for their effort and what they did do. So that is going by time. There are different ways to do that, but that's just a primer on chunking by time. And then there's chunking by task. And that is, let's say you have to write a paper. Well, I joke around, but this is something I really would say to kids. Can you write that paper? No. Okay. Can you write a page? No. Can you write a paragraph? No. Okay. Can you write a sentence? No. Can you write a word? No. Can you put a dot on the paper? Yes. Cool. We will start there. That is scaffolding 101. How can we get the task chunked down to something, again, whether it's time or task, how can we get it chunked down so that it is achievable, it is succeedable, so that they can have an experience of success? So if the task is writing a paper and they cannot start, well, they feel overwhelmed. It feels too abstract. Okay, where do we start? A good question for those of you taking notes is, what is the very next thing you need to do in this process? What is the very next thing you need to do? They might say, write an outline. They might say, read over the rubric. They might not know what to do. But our objective is, and the more we can get them to take ownership of that's something I do in my coaching. But either way, we're going to try to figure out what is the next small step that they can do. They don't have to write a paper. That's the big thing. They have to figure out their topic. They have to blah, blah, blah. And I know that everybody is saying, well, it takes them forever to figure out the topic. Okay, these are two in the weeds. They have 50 math problems to do. Okay, cool. Can they do the first section? Can they do the first 3? Can they do the first 10? Can they chunk by time and do it for 5 minutes or 10 minutes? What is that threshold? So a lot of what we're doing is trying to give them their own toolkit that they are learning to consciously use, so that they are learning to turn things from abstract into concrete themselves. How do we do that? In Seth's view, we're doing this by chunking, and there's a million ways to do it. But the two main ways that I teach are the time and the task. And then there's a million strategies under that. But I want you to walk away knowing that if you can start imagining that that elephant is too big, and what is the right bite size, and that learning that baby step is what's going to get you traction with your kid. And if you can walk away from this today with that, then you're going to be making progress. Because this is an emotional experience. If they emotionally are like this, how do we chunk it so that they can succeed at something, feel seen for it? And how can you, the parent, let the rest go and be like, okay, I know that if I push too far, this is counterproductive. So finding that line. But I think chunking is a very concrete thing that I can give you to know where to do that. So we talked about friction points as sort of the overarching theme. And then we had relationship, understanding the body, and how engaging is the work, and then chunking. And then there were sub details under that stuff.
Bing, bing, boom. That was amazing. That was so
I know,
cool.
And I'm sorry, everybody, that I could have talked literally for hours and hours and hours on that stuff, but I wanted
it's kind of what you do, right? Like, this is kind of your thing, executive functioning.
Yeah.
So it's okay. So I appreciate the tip of the iceberg. Yeah, it is so amazing. It's been really helpful, and it's bringing up a lot of questions, even for myself. So if you don't mind, I'd love to dive into some questions. All right. So I'm going to start with me. I'm selfish. So I'm going to start with me because
Thank you for everybody who's on camera, by the way. I'm looking at gallery view right now, and I'm checking in with everybody again. It's so good to see real human beings.
It is. We've got Michelle and
hi, everybody.
Jessica and Beth and Lori and Maya and Valerie and Sarah. I see so many of our Calm the Chaos students here. I also see people that are new to us. So I love it. I love it. I love it. All right. So like I said, I'm going to be selfish. I got my own problems and I want some support. So I will make them applicable to others. So yeah, we're going to make this. I have a feeling it's applicable. So we're going to deal with my middle right now. So he is 16 years old. He is, he's a teenager, and he is in his second year of high school. We talked about him last year because I was concerned about him going into high school and some of the systems he might need in place. So this summer, his whole life, he's been a kid that didn't care about anything. And what I mean by that is, like, as a 2-year-old, like, he didn't care what toy he had. He didn't care what we did. He didn't care what we ate. He was so easygoing. So it's on the great side. It's like, yeah, this is easy. This is nice. Like, he just goes with the flow. He doesn't care about anything. On the on the other side, like he was really hard to buy presents for. He was really hard to like surprise or do something fun with. He was really hard to connect with in terms of finding something that was just special for him. And that was as a 2-year-old. Now he's 16, and that is still him. He's still very much, that's part of his personality. And so I also know that when he's frustrated, when he's overwhelmed, he shuts down. So he goes into that like freeze mode, and also into fawn, where he's just like, fine, I'll do whatever you want. Or he'll say, I don't care. I don't care. Right. And I saw that in the comments. What do you do when your kid says, I don't care? Well, my son is the king of I don't care. So he's just like, I don't care. I don't care. I don't care. I don't care. Fine, whatever. I don't care. And I've started with relationship. I'm giving you a ton of background so everyone can kind of
Cool.
see.
And I'm going to take some notes. Okay.
Okay. So I this way people can know, one, you're not alone. And even though I have the relationship piece and I understand the physical body experience, and I am being patient and persistent and empathetic, I'm still struggling. So he got sick at the beginning of the school year. So immediately, right, he is starting off behind. So he was out of school for 2 whole weeks, the first of the school. So he's immediately behind. His teachers are still adding all the assignments to his online portal. So his grades going down, 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 down. And so he's failing all his classes before he ever goes to his first day of class. He's starting with an F. And so that's really, really hard. And so we were able to get him to school. He contemplated doing homeschool because he wasn't sure if he was going to be able to get through it. He decided, no, I've got this. I can do school. I'm going to be okay. I'm going to make up the work. Well, come to find out, I start getting those calls from school. Your son missed this class. Your son missed this class. Your son missed this class. And at first it was like, oh, that must be a mistake. They just missed him. They don't know him yet or whatever. Come to find out, he's skipping class so much that Friday he went to 1 out of 4 classes. Monday he went to 1 out of 4 classes. Yesterday he went to 2 out of 2 classes. So I've been really focusing on relationship and conversation with him and trying to get to the bottom of where is this coming from? What's happening? Where is he going? What's he doing? Who's he hanging out with? And he very openly shared with me that it was easy to skip, that he looks like a senior. So people just think he has a free class. So he just sits out in the, it's nice outside. So he sits outside and he does his work, which obviously he's not doing his work because we look online and he's missing all of his assignments still. He hasn't been to 4th period all year, not one time, whether it's photography or whether it's programming. I've hit the point where I think I pushed him too far. Even though I'm not like, you need to get great grades or you need to catch up. It's just, he hit a point yesterday where he was like, he even said to me, it sucks to suck, which is like, oh, like just a burn, and then him saying it's never enough, right? Like, I'm never enough. I'm not doing what you want. And I'm like, all I want is for you to feel confident and happy and for you to feel supported. How can I do that? So even knowing everything I know, how would you help me and my son?
Yeah. Okay. Great. So the first thing that comes to mind is in terms of like the mental health is the most important. You and I both say that. But yeah. And I think for Dayna too, it's always good to hear this from somebody who's not Dayna, because that's what we need. We're humans. And but yeah, so that's the first thing, is that the mental health is the most important. And also research shows, and also I think our guts know that it's not important necessarily how your child responds to the conversation. It's important that we have the conversations with our kids. And I want to say especially, not especially, but I'm going to, for lack of a better word, say especially for dads. And this is, I'm not trying to be sexist or whatever, but tendency is that dads are less communicative, less involved, less aware, less having these sorts of conversations. So I am going to put that out there for any of you dads who don't know what to say, are not very communicative, are more on the quiet or introverted side. It doesn't matter. Say stuff anyhow. It does not have to come out right. It does not have to be right. Research shows it's important that you have the conversation, that in that for moms and dads or anybody, any gender, any parent, that you say, hey, I need to talk to you about this. I love you. I care about you. I'm here for you. You put the phone down. You're not checking your phone. It's off. You're present with your kid and you're having the conversations about whatever the thing is. And the conversations, you try your best to leave on a high note and help them feel seen and understood. It's not about the content of the conversation. It's about your kid feeling seen, understood, attachment theory type stuff, that like you've got their back. It doesn't have to end well, but you want it to end where at least they know you've got their back and you are trying, and you're trying to communicate about the thing, whatever the thing is. So keep having the conversation, Dayna. And again, I feel like I'm giving advice, but that's not my intention. But if we had like a lot of time to do coaching, it's
No,
like
I think that's really helpful to hear, is because it didn't come like I stayed calm. I was loving and empathetic, and I was listening, even when he said, "You're not listening." And I said, "Fine. Okay. Tell me what I need to hear." And all he said is, I said I'd go to class. Like, okay. And so at the end, right, I even texted him last night and I said, I need you to know I love you and I'm here to support you, even if we haven't found a solution yet. So it was
yep.
good to hear that it doesn't have to end well for it to be a beneficial conversation. And it goes back to that point that you
And the
talked about
persistence
earlier.
word that I said before,
Yeah.
keep having those
Yes.
conversations, even if they don't seem like they're landing.
Right. And we've been having conversations around school, since he started school, and we're almost a month in. So this has been a long game. And you talked about that at the beginning. It is this very, very long run with him. So thank you for that
Yeah.
reminder.
And the feeling of not enough. And in one way, that's part of the human condition. But this isn't that. This is extreme. This is scary. I don't feel like I'm enough. It sucks to suck. And that's the mental health thing. So you can't like just invalidate and be like, so this is something that adults do a lot, is invalidate. Okay. Oh, don't think that way. Oh, you're fine. Oh, you're making a big deal out of it. Oh, everything's let me explain to you why logically the way you feel is not accurate to your situation. That you may be very right in what you say with the wisdom that you have in your life, but that is invalidating. Okay.
Yeah.
That doesn't, and I'm not saying that you do, but
No,
I
I
mean, a
tried
lot
to
of
I
us have
tried to
learned.
say that sounds very hard. It sounds hard to feel like it sucks to suck. Like, I hear that you're not happy right now.
Right.
And he's
And
like,
that's
"Oh, you know
valid.
everything about me. I'm not sad." And so he's got the wall up, right? And so that's when I knew it was time to walk away. I was like, "Okay, this conversation has hit a point where you aren't able to hear what I'm saying." And so I walked away. But again, it doesn't feel good. It doesn't, I want to help him. I want to like pick him up and hold him and rock him, and then him feel good enough to go back to school.
Yeah. And with the, some of the validation, and again, if he's not giving you a lot verbally, like if you said, well, then tell me, and then he gives you a one liner. Now at that point, this is a strategy that I use a lot, that is that's very powerful, but that takes time. But so for those of you taking notes, I will say, like if they said, well, I go to class, I'd be nodding for a long time. This is called wait time. And then I'd be like, cool, tell me more. I'm done. Cool, I'm still listening. Now I'm telling you, parents, this is like a minute of waiting. Like a lot of times for these kids, it really takes and they'll be like, I'm done. And sometimes you're gonna be like, no, that's cool. I'm still listening. Take all the time you need. I don't stare at them. I look away. And I might even tell them that too. I'm gonna look away so that there's no pressure here. Just take your time. I have to take a lot of time to get them to start to say stuff. It takes a lot of time. 1 minute can feel like an eternity. But once those things start happening, you'll get more and more. Those are skills as well for us to listen, but also for them to be willing to say more, because it's scary, because they're not used to maybe even talking. They're not used to feeling heard. Like, these things take time. So I wanted to say that. I wanted to mention for all of you parents also, at the beginning when Dayna was talking about where he would say, I don't care. I want to talk about that thing right there for all of you. Even if your kid doesn't say that, I want to tell you that all of your kids, and you and me and Dayna, all of us have defaults for our resistances. All saying I don't care is a default. So I want you to think about that as a default. And for all of you parents, those things that your kid says all the time is a default. For me, saying I'm a lazy failure when I was a teenager is a default for me to make my parents feel guilty enough to get the heck off my back and let me not take action. That was how I manipulated them. That was one of the many ways. But I want you to think of that default not as a negative, like mean manipulation, but as a tool. That was an adaptive tool that her child used to lower his stress. Now, it is a dysfunctional, maladaptive tool, but for him, it was serving a purpose. So when your kid has a default, it is serving a purpose. So don't get lost in their default. Back up to the body and what in their nervous system and what is the purpose of their default. Really take, not when you're talking to them, really when you're not talking to them, maybe journal and take a step back and write out their defaults and write out what are they getting out of that, or what do they think they're getting out of it. But in this case, Dayna, your kid, it's serving a purpose, and this is actual coaching. So I would say, Dayna, what purpose does saying I don't care, what purpose does that have for your child?
Well, it releases the disappointment that that I might have in him, or that he has in himself. Like, if he doesn't care, then he can't get hurt by it. If he doesn't care, then the pressure is off of him. Because if he cared, he would be upset. If he cared, then he might be frustrated with himself. And so the I don't care is an easy way to say, like, oof, like I can let go of that. Like,
So
it's
it's
a deflection.
protective,
Yeah, it's very protective.
and it protects him from being hurt. And what, for him, what would being hurt be like? What would that mean if he was hurt?
So for him, you know, it's a really good question, because I think for him, he struggles with that enoughness. We talked about that. He's this middle child.
That's what I thought you would go with that. Good.
Yeah, like he's a middle child. He has an older brother who has been intense his entire life and has needed a lot of our attention. And then he had a toddler sister who then, I mean, she's not a toddler anymore, but intensity plus a toddler, and he was in the middle of that. So he's always been kind of this calm one in the family. So
Okay, well, that's fine. Let's keep tracing this back. So
yeah,
if I'm hurt, that means I'm not enough.
yeah.
Now let's go a step further. If I'm not enough, what does that mean?
I think for him, if I'm not enough, I'm not worthy. If I'm not worthy, like I'm not worthy of the help, is what I think he then goes to. If I'm not enough, then I shouldn't get help. I shouldn't be I shouldn't be causing more stress to other people. Like, I shouldn't be asking for people to help me, because I'm not worthy of it.
And then what does that mean if you can't get the help?
Hmm. Like, what do you say like rephrase the question? What do you mean? What does it mean?
I mean, what is it in the fear? What is the fear if I don't get the help? If I'm not enough and I'm not worthy and I don't get help, what does that mean? Well, what might that mean to his nervous system?
Oh, that he's in danger, that he is in danger of failing, in danger of not fitting in danger of not being loved
And
or
what
being safe.
would that mean if he's fails and isn't loved? And
I'm not sure.
And you don't have to know. I mean, it's just exploring these questions, sort of this is this why technique.
Yes.
Like just, but there is a purpose. And I mean, ultimately the nervous system with safety, we don't want to die. The nervous system is trying to keep us alive. So
Yep.
ultimately, a lot of our fears go back to, if this doesn't happen, if I don't get help, if I'm not loved, I'm going to die. I'm going to be alone and I'm going to die. So I'm not trying to be dramatic for anybody here, but that is what the nervous system is doing, is trying to protect us for survival. So when we think about that, so his I don't care is this default that he's not aware of it. Like he's not aware of like where the sort of the all the connections in his brain to how that goes to how unsafe he feels. But when we can look at that, that's serving a purpose. He feels unsafe. Then we can start sort of reverse engineering and say, cool, how can he feel safe? I'm going to ask him and get input and buy-in and ownership. And I'm also going to think for myself, what does he need to feel safe? Now, again, this is a long road. And Dayna's like, the kid needs to get this stuff done or they're going to fail. And he's 16. And we want to get him to be independent and move out of the house and get an apartment and get cool jobs and have cool relationships and all this stuff. And there's that. But we do need to say, and we're not going to stop trying to go there while we're trying to work on how can we help him feel more safe. But we are going to look at this from a different lens and say, okay, one of his defaults is this. He feels unsafe. How are we going to sort of reverse engineer this to help him build a felt sense in his body? I am safe. Now, not 24/7, not all the time. I mean, but if it's X amount of time now, how are we going to get it one bump higher? How are we going to get it 1 percentage point higher? How are we going to make baby steps that he feels a little more safe, a few more moments throughout the day, and build on that? And the objective of my work is when a kid's in a downward spiral, whether it's emotional, academic, whatever, but the downward spiral, how do we get it to be on an upward curve? Now, that upward curve is, if you've ever heard of the hockey curve, it's spoken about in business a lot, but it's all kinds of play, but it's a slow progress. And then eventually it starts to go up and then it goes up fast. I'm not even looking for the hockey curve. I'm just looking though for the spiral to change to that upward curve. So your question, in my opinion, or what Dayna should, and I'm not telling you, but what we're asking is like, how do we get in this sensation, that this felt sense that this child is having, that their body feels so uncomfortable that they're saying, it sucks to suck. I'm not enough, to saying, like getting back to a place where in the body, it's like, okay, I feel safe. Now, this is going to take a long time, because imagine this kid being in school. How are they going to feel safe making up weeks worth of work plus staying on top? So now I'll get a little bit more concrete and then we'll wrap up, Dayna. But so in terms of this particular kiddo, if things didn't change and it was at this school, I would be really advocating. I would be looking at the 2 weeks of work. I'd be advocating with the admin and the counselors and the teachers all. Sometimes I would have emails CC'd for paper trail and for accountability on the teacher. So some teacher can't be a jerk and just ignore your email forever, where you can write it back. If it's one of those teachers, you can write back the next day to everybody because they already saw the first email. Mr. Jones, I haven't heard back from you. What's up? Mr. Jones, I haven't heard back from you. What's up? Really need your help here. My kid is suffering, so that there's accountability, there's pressure. But, and then my question would be, so for those taking notes in this case, my question to the school, or in my own mind, would be, what is the point of what they were trying to learn in that first 2 weeks? So a lot of times the first week is a wash anyway, so you got that going for you. But honestly, thinking about whatever the content area is, let's say it's chemistry. Let's say that it is chemistry class, and in that content area, the first 2 weeks they covered X, Y, and Z. They're going to this place in this semester. What is the foundational stuff that they will need? Because I don't want to have my kid doing a bunch of extra homework. I want to figure out from that teacher clearly what is actually needed for the rest of the semester that we can focus on getting my kid, quote, caught up. Getting caught up doesn't mean doing all the work. This is very, very important for all of you to hear, in Seth's opinion. I'll always say that. But I don't care. Getting caught up does not mean doing all the missing work. That is not getting caught up. Getting caught up means in a rational world, what does this kid need to learn to get an education in chemistry this semester for the rest of the semester to fill in the gaps so that we can get going? That's what we need. Okay. So that sort of advocacy, getting focused on what actually freaking matters. And what actually freaking matters is what do they need? And if they can't do that, what they missed in the 2 weeks, then you need to drop the class or figure out what the solution is. But if they literally can't do that, then they shouldn't fail the class. They should drop the class or what have you. So anyhow, that you need to figure that out on a class by class basis is what is the foundation for the rest of the semester, and have that discussion with the school. And hopefully the teachers are rational about it so that you can now say, sorry, kiddo, there is going to be some pressure, but we are going to get you there. And I also, in recommendation wise, most likely would recommend to Dayna, do not be that person. Get a tutor, a cool chemistry and math tutor, blah, blah, and have them work with your kid for the next 4 to 8 weeks.
Refuses a tutor or help.
Yeah. And that's a whole nother and that is probably going to go to the I don't care and the how he feels, and that's going to be how do we deconstruct this. And I will say school refusal is one of the most difficult things ever. And again, I'll go back to chunking. He refuses the help. How do you chunk that help down so small to say, you know what? And there are many ways to do this, but let's take one example, a false choice. Cool. I'll tell you what. I know you don't want a tutor or whatever, but we're doing it. And if you could say this to your child. And but here's the thing. You can either do it for 2 weeks or 2 months or 2 semesters. You choose. All you got to do is get them there to the 2 weeks or to the first session or just to meet the person. And that's the thing for me when I'm working with families. It's like, look, I don't care if you want to meet with me or not, as far as the kid's concerned, but meet me, come to a meet and greet. If you don't like me, fine. Like, it has to be so low investment to your child for them to feel safe. So you have to figure out what's the appropriate chunking to get them to take the next step. And it might be so hard that it might end up, that it's a therapist that does it and it takes months to get, but so that I hope helped everybody think through things. I tried to articulate things so that I wonder how many people are still on the call. So
there's a lot. We have almost 200 people still on the call.
Okay. I hope that
we
was
have not lost anyone.
Yes. Then to lots of different types of situations by talking about defaults, by talking about the nervous system and those sorts of things. And then to give you specific strategies that I'd probably be recommending to you.
Yeah.
So last thing I want to say is sorry to interrupt you, Dayna, but very last point that I had in my notes that is important is that what your child or a kiddo in the situation needs is to feel success.
Yeah.
Feel successful. Feel like they can do it. Right now, he does not feel like that.
No, and I messed up. Like yesterday, I went and pulled out all his grades and I was like, you have a 0 here. You have a 33 here. I know better. I know better. So today is a repair.
Well, I'm glad that you're human and you're saying that to everybody because I appreciate that about you. And that's important.
That's where he shut down is I had my notebook and I had all his classes and I had all the missing assignments and I had all of his grades. And I was like, you have a 0 here. You have a 0 here. You have a 0 here. How is a kid not going to shut down with that? So, I think we forget, even if we know, the reason I'm modeling with my own struggle is not to be like, I don't know what the heck I'm doing, but it's to just show it doesn't matter how much learning you've done. I saw someone in the comments recommending Ross Green. Ross Green's fantastic. Collaborative problem solving, fantastic. Seth has given you a lot of knowledge to go look up, and Seth has given you a lot of things. It doesn't matter how much knowledge and strategies and tools you have when you're dealing with your own kid. We're still going to get stuck in our own head, and we're human, and we're still going to get fearful and worried and nervous, and that's going to take over sometimes. So there was a method to my madness in I wasn't just being selfish and saying, Seth, answer my question only. But I knew that if you could help with the question I asked, which is, the most extreme of school refusal. It's skipping in high school where there's some big stakes, right? Because he's in high school, there's dangerous things he could be doing. Luckily, he's not. He could be leaving campus. Luckily, he's not. My kid could be leaving and drinking or smoking, or he's not doing any of those things. So those are the wins and the successes. But it's not much different than a 4-year-old who's refusing to go to school, or a 4-year-old who isn't doing their classroom, now 5, 6, whatever, or an 8-year-old who's not doing the schoolwork. It's the same concepts. And so what Seth walked us through, I think, is so incredibly valuable of getting us to think, like, why are they doing, what is the coping strategy they have? What is that default? Why are they doing it? Digging into why, and how are we showing up, and how do they feel safe? How can they feel successful? Those are some fantastic questions. And I see a ton of questions in the comments. And
I have one more thing I don't want to forget.
Okay. So we're going to come back to you, Seth, but there's a ton of questions in the comments, and relay these things that we're talking about to the questions you're saying, like that you're asking in the comments, because even though we're talking about a teenager in high school and skipping, it's not the underbelly of a lot of it is very similar. And going back to those friction points that Seth talked about. So Seth, you still had one more thing, and then I have one more question for you.
Okay. Now, what I said before is that the resistance in any arena comes from, and again, this can be for you, the person watching, and something that you resist, or it can be for your kiddo. And it could be for the kiddo doing homework, or it could be in school refusal or whatever. But the resistance, again, this felt sense, is abstraction. It is, I don't know what the heck is going on here, how long it's going to take, how stressful, what the steps are. It's so abstract, and I don't know how to approach this. I don't know how to be successful. I don't know what you're asking me to do. So again, it could be literally doing homework in one night, or it could be, in this case, how do you go through this semester successfully? I don't know how to do this. Any of you thinking about resistance? I don't know how to eat that smoothie that Seth made with liver and insects in it. Okay. I don't know how to do that. I don't know how to make this palatable. I don't know how to have that difficult conversation with my spouse or my boss or my friend who's no longer my friend. All of you can think of things. I don't know how to do that. It's too abstract. I'm afraid. There's fear in my body. How do I do this? I don't want to feel the fear. So let's avoid it and use our strategies or defaults to avoid it. Okay. So what is Seth saying then? I'm saying that then what we need to do is help it become concrete. Don't worry, I'm going to give everybody a very practical thing here. Okay. So we need to make it concrete, or more concrete. So move from abstract to concrete, because your kid's not going to make headway if it doesn't become concrete. How are you going to do that? You have to have a plan. That's the one word, Dayna, if you're putting that on your doodle, which I wish I could see it. But plan, you need a plan. Now, practically speaking, for all of you watching, my recommendation would be to make a step-by-step success plan for your kid without your kid first. Like literally sit down for an hour and write out or doodle out or make an out. But what is the plan? If Dayna's going to get her kid from how they feel now to by the end of the semester, by the end of the school year, they feel good about themselves, they feel confident, they're able to receive help, and they're passing the classes, whatever that goal is. What step-by-step things have to do, so that you need to get a plan first. Next, then I would sit down with your kid without the plan that you spent an hour writing. I would sit down with your kid, not tell them that you did that, and help them with, you could be using a friend, relative, spouse, anybody, but probably not just you, probably a couple of people on the support team for your kiddo, to sit down with your kiddo and say, hey, we're going to talk for a couple hours, eat some food and relax, but let's make a plan. Where do you want to be and at the end of the semester, at the end of the school year? What would it look like? And of course, what's he going to say, Dayna? What's his
He's going to
default
say,
going to
I
be?
don't care.
That's right. So you have expected that that's going to happen. That's a very good thing, because now you can strategize, and I'm not going to coach to that level right now, but now you can strategize. What are we going to do when he says, I don't care? So that you're not blindsided by it, even though it's happened a million times, and you don't respond with your default, which is not working. But you're going to have some, when he says, I don't care, you have something different to say, but you have a strategy that you're going to apply when he says, I don't care. And you'll be like, thought you would say that, but take your time. We're good. And like literally, if he sits there for 4 minutes before he says a word, bite your tongue, or whatever the heck I said. I wasn't going to get in the weeds with that, but your child has to have some buy-in and ownership over this. So they have to be able to say, yeah, I want, this is, there are many ways to do this. Again, I'm getting too in the weeds, but I might use a strategy like, cool, you don't care. What do you not want at the end of the semester, at the end of the year? What do you not want today? I don't want you bugging me. I don't want
I
you
don't want
being
to
so
have this
annoying.
talk.
I don't want you being so stupid. Okay, cool. Don't take it personally. Why not? Tell me about that. Like, but you might start there to get to, because the opposite is what they do want. But once your kid has a plan, and you don't have to follow the plan, but your kid has to get from abstraction to, okay, I can see a path to this place. It may or may not work, but I can see a path. And you may know in your head that the plan that they came up with is complete crap, but that is the starting point.
Yes.
That your kid can start to open that door. And again, parents watching have different levels of difficulties, but that's what we need, is just that.
Well, and that's what we talk about in Calm the Chaos. And that is essentially exactly what we do is, and I was reminded of that last night, is that you have to, and I was talking with my coaching clients earlier in our group, and I was saying, I have to go back to the basics, and I have to have a ride the storm plan for myself so that I stay calm, so that I don't say things, I don't react and respond, so I can be that calm presence for him. I need to be able to create an in the moment plan of what to say when he says, I don't care, or when I get the truancy letter, which showed up today. And then I need an ahead of the moment plan with him of like, okay, what are we going to do next time you go to a class and don't want to go? What are we going to do to get ahead of, and we did come up with,
you don't need to address all of those in that conversation.
Right. No, they're each separately.
But eventually,
and so that is something, that we do well here. Seth goes really deep into the executive functioning pieces and the how to create plans with our kids around school struggles. And so I think we're a match made in heaven, Seth. Like, that's why I think you're an amazing friend. And so I hope you guys have found a lot of use out of this webinar. And just starting to have this discussion about school struggles and seeing that it's bigger than, oh, I just need to get him to sit down for 5 minutes, or it's a hack or a tip or a strategy. It is a holistic thing that we need to do, where we back out and we look at those friction points of rebuilding the relationship and understanding the physical somatic experience and changing our approach so that it's persistent and patient and empathetic and compassionate, making sure that the work is engaging and not just busy work, and then chunking things down and creating a plan with our kids. So you can see that doesn't happen in 5 seconds after we get off this call. So I want to thank everyone who's here, everyone who's shown up, and those of you that came late because we didn't have our settings correct. We will be trying to send you out a replay as soon as this processes and everything. So thank you for your patience. I know there were over 1,000 of you registered trying to get into the room. So thank you for showing up, those of you that could. Seth, where can people find more about you? Because you have got all this knowledge and all of this support for parents who are struggling with this very thing.
All right. I think I can screen share, right?
You should be able to.
Okay. All right. So I have a site that I've been redoing for a year and a half, but Eventually it'll be done. But this is my main site, SethPerler.com. You can sign up. I send out usually weekly vlogs and stuff. I have a summit called Executive Function, summit.com, where I interview amazing people around executive function, including Dayna. And then I have a program right now, which starts Saturday, called BSY, Best Semester Yet. And this is like a 1 semester 10 event with parents and kids for executive function. And then I have my YouTube channel, and I'm on a bunch of podcasts and stuff like that. But that's the gist of where you can find me.
I love it. And on the replay page, we will make sure that we put all of those amazing links. I put the link to SethPerler.com in the comments, so you can start there and then find all the other awesomeness as well. Seth, as people are entering into this new school year and they're going back to school and they're dealing with these homework struggles and battles with their kids, what do you think is the number one thing that they need to hear right now?
Sorry, I got distracted because I just opened up the gallery view again, looking at everybody again.
Okay. Do you need me to ask you again?
Yeah, I do. But
okay.
Let me look at the human beings again. Okay. Thanks.
Okay. So my question is.
Okay. Sorry.
That's okay.
You're also distracting. But my
wait.
brain is fried after this too.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you so much for doing
I'm back with you.
It's been beautiful. Okay. So my question is, if parents are here and they're struggling with homework, they're listening to this on replay, whatever it is, and they're that parent who's really struggling with school, homework, all the things we talked about today, what do you think is the one thing that they need to hear right now?
That they need to hear?
Mm-hmm.
I guess there's so many directions I could go with that, but I'm just gonna I mean, I'll say the deep inner work stuff. Do your deep inner work. And that means self-compassion too. That is part of the deep inner work. So understand how awesome you are. Like, you're going to have an inner critic that is going to be like, oh, I'm a shitty parent. Well, I don't know what your inner critic says, but whatever it says, whatever iteration of that.
Mine gave me a report card in every area of life and gave me an F. So just if you need to know what an inner critic says, that's what mine did yesterday.
So that inner critic is not going anywhere. Hopefully the voice will get quieter in time. But when that comes up, have that self-compassionate voice. You have to practice. We have to practice that self-compassionate voice. We practice the inner critic voice very hard. But we have to practice the self-compassion part. But realize how awesome you are, how much you, just like your kid wants to feel seen, see yourself for how much you do right, how awesome you are, how much you do try, all the efforts that your efforts have not gone unnoticed, and they're not futile. They make a difference, even if they were dysfunctional, maladaptive, and blah blah. But they matter. And they were the best you could do on that day, but they matter and they add up. And just so that's the first thing would be like the deep inner work, the self-compassion part of it though. And then the second thing is the persistence. Do not give up. Do not give up on yourself or your kid. Like, you will see changes, you will see shifts. They take a long time. Once they start, it does get easier and you see more and more. Dayna and I have both seen people come from completely hopeless places to where things really turn around, and then get hopeless again, then turn around again, and it's okay. But what you want is a great relationship with your kid, and you want your kid to become an adult where you have a great relationship with your kid as an adult, and they come to you when they're 35 and they say, this horrible thing just happened in my life and I want to talk to you about it. And that's what you want, is that the relationship is the most important thing. So yeah, the persistence in trying to apply whatever is working for you. So that's where I would go. The self-compassion. That was not one thing, but
that's totally
deep inner work with the self-compassion.
It was beautiful.
And then just don't give up.
I love that so much. And for those of you here, as we wrap this up and say goodbye to Seth and thank him for everything he's done, if this has been helpful, can you just say yes, or this has been helpful in the comments? That would be so fantastic. Or just put helpful in the comments so Seth can see those kind of flyby. Yes, helpful. This has been so helpful. Amazing, super helpful.
I'm reading these.
Good. There you go, Seth. You're the best. Thank you. It's been fantastic, eye-opening.
Thanks, everybody.
Yes, confirmation of the ways to be with them.
It is hard to know what lands,
Yes.
especially
Well,
with.
that's what I was going to ask them last. So go ahead and let me know your number one takeaway. What is the thing? We remember the first thing and the last thing we heard. So what is the number one thing that you want to walk away with? And remember, as you walk away from this, especially as your kids are coming home from school and they're doing homework and you're seeing the school load or you're getting a call from school, what is the one thing that you're going to remember as you walk away? Your number one takeaway. Yes. Self-compassion, connecting with the child, persistence, the certainty. How do you eat an elephant? By chunking. Relationships are more important. All of it landed. Mental health is so important. The abstract ideas, especially for kindergartner, yes. Helps reinforce particular idea that the important things are the functioning, the process, not the grades. Connection, I'm enough. Relationship and mental health. Fantastic. Deep, deep self-work. Yes. And this takes time. It does. Stand up and look whether the range of homework is helpful. Yes. Make it concrete. Working on where do we start? Relationship first. The puzzle.
The puzzle idea. I got to remember that.
Yeah.
Develop that idea. Whenever I think of metaphors I like and stuff, I want to.
I know. And then you start using them again and again. Jason then makes fun of me when I keep using, he's like, you really like that one. I'm like, I do. I really, my newest one that I really like is talking about in the moment when, like, we can use this for, we talked about how to respond. So in the moment when your kid's refusing their homework, they're not doing their work, whatever it is, and they're starting to get really frustrated, you can see that. Anything you say or do is just going to add on to their already frustrated sense. And so the analogy metaphor I've been using is it's like having a sunburn and then putting an itchy sweater on an already sunburnt skin, like that discomfort, like you're just adding more on top of an already uncomfortable situation. So if you can remember that in the heat of the moment, that every word, every action, every interaction you add onto that frustration is just going to add more input for your kids and more dysregulation. So anyway, that's been mine that I've been doing. I like your puzzle one too. All right. You guys have been amazing. This has been so
Thank you for the
fun.
comments, and I'm reading them.
Awesome. And Seth, I can get all these comments over to you as well as all the questions, because I know that you do some amazing Q&As and respond to questions on your YouTube. And so you are going to have so many questions that you can use now for your YouTube and for your group. So yeah, I'll make sure I get you all of these, Seth. Everyone, thank you. Thank you so much. We're going to do another one of these next week, and we're going to be talking about how to advocate and help you help your kids get their needs met in the classroom. And we've got the amazing, I don't want to get this wrong, I believe it's Emily. It's one of the Emilys. It's either Emily King or Emily Kirshner Morris. I can't remember which one. They're both amazing. And we're going to have one of them next week helping us out with this. All right. So we will be sending those to the, you'll get it in your inbox, just where you've signed up for this. We'll be letting you know about that. All right. You guys are awesome. And I will talk to you later. Bye, guys.
Bye, everybody.